Most of us do it without thinking. We cook a meal, store the leftovers, and reheat them the next day, believing we're being practical, even healthy. But few realize that the act of reheating certain foods can quietly turn a once nutritious dish into a toxic cocktail for the body and brain. Modern research is revealing that heat, especially repeated heating, doesn't just change flavor or texture. It alters the very chemistry of food, creating compounds linked to cancer, dementia, and accelerated aging. When proteins, fats, and carbohydrates are exposed to high or repeated heat, they undergo what's known as the Maillard reaction, a complex chemical process that can produce advanced glycation end products, AGEs, and acrylamides, both strongly associated with oxidative stress, inflammation, and DNA damage. These molecules don't just harm cells in the moment, they accumulate over time, impairing mitochondrial function, stiffening blood vessels, and disrupting brain communication pathways. In other words, something as innocent as reheating last night's meal could, over years, nudge your biology toward chronic inflammation, metabolic dysfunction, and even neurodegenerative disease. Today we'll explore the 5 foods you should never reheat, and more importantly, we'll understand why. Because longevity isn't about fear, it's about awareness. And the small daily choices we make around food can profoundly shape how long and how well we live. Chicken is one of the most widely consumed sources of protein in the world, often praised for its lean quality and high nutritional value. But when it comes to reheating, this common food can turn from a metabolic ally into a potential cellular hazard. The reason lies not in the chicken itself, but in what happens to its proteins and fats under repeated exposure to heat. When you first cook chicken, its proteins unfold and denature, a natural and necessary process that makes them digestible. But when that same chicken is cooled, stored, and reheated, those proteins don't simply return to their original structure. Instead, they undergo further chemical transformations. Reheating causes protein oxidation, where reactive oxygen species attack amino acids, leading to the formation of carbonyl compounds. These oxidized proteins are far less bioavailable, meaning your body struggles to use them for muscle repair or cellular renewal, and they can promote oxidative stress once absorbed. This oxidative stress is the same process that accelerates aging throughout the body. It's driven by an imbalance between free radicals and your antioxidant defenses. Over time, excessive consumption of oxidized proteins can contribute to systemic inflammation, impairing mitochondrial efficiency, the energy factories of your cells, and promoting the misfolding of other proteins, a mechanism implicated in neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. But the danger doesn't end there. Chicken is also rich in polyunsaturated fatty acids, POFs, which are highly susceptible to oxidation when reheated. Especially at high temperatures such as frying or microwaving, these fats degrade into compounds known as aldehydes and lipid peroxides. Aldehydes are reactive molecules that can bind directly to DNA and proteins, altering their structure and function. This isn't a minor issue. Aldehydes have been shown in multiple studies to play a direct role in carcinogenesis, the process by which normal cells turn into cancer cells. Research published in Food and Chemical Toxicology found that reheating poultry can increase formation of malondialdehyde, MDA, one of the most damaging lipid peroxidation byproducts. MDA interacts with DNA bases, forming adducts that interfere with genetic stability and replication. Over time, this damage accumulates, quietly fueling the biological processes that drive aging, cancer, and cardiovascular disease. What's particularly concerning is how easily this damage can be overlooked. When we reheat chicken in a microwave or pan, it may look and smell fine, yet the molecular structure has changed dramatically. The fats are no longer stable, the proteins are no longer whole, and the nutrients have been compromised. What's left is a meal that can trigger low-grade inflammation every time you eat it, a phenomenon sometimes referred to as inflammaging. This chronic silent inflammation underlies nearly every major age-related disease from type 2 diabetes to dementia. Another overlooked factor is the microbiological risk. Improper storage and reheating of chicken can allow bacteria like Clostridium perfringens to proliferate. Even if these bacteria are killed during reheating, the toxins they produce can remain active and harmful to your digestive system. In the short term, that may mean nausea or discomfort, but over years, recurrent inflammation from microbial toxins can weaken the gut barrier, leading to what researchers call metabolic endotoxemia, a state where bacterial fragments seep into the bloodstream, triggering widespread immune activation and oxidative stress. The irony is that we often reheat chicken for convenience, thinking it's a healthy meal prep habit. Yet the very process that saves us time can silently undermine our cellular resilience. From a longevity perspective, these daily habits matter. Mitochondrial health, DNA stability, and protein integrity are all interconnected, and they're all influenced by the molecular quality of the food we consume. So what can you do instead? If you cook chicken, aim to consume it freshly prepared whenever possible. If you must store leftovers, cool them quickly, refrigerate them below 5 degrees Celsius, 41 degrees Fahrenheit, and eat them cold within 24 hours rather than reheating. Cold chicken can be safely used in salads or wraps, where it retains its nutrient integrity without further oxidation. If you do need to reheat it, do so gently, at low temperatures, and only once. Avoid frying or microwaving, as both methods generate localized hotspots that accelerate lipid and protein degradation. Using a steamer or low-temperature oven can reduce oxidative stress formation, but it will never completely eliminate it. In the broader context of longevity, what we eat and how we prepare it matters profoundly. Every reheating cycle subtly alters the biochemical landscape of our meals, introducing compounds that accelerate biological aging. Protecting our cells from unnecessary oxidative stress is not about fear or restriction, it's about being intentional by respecting the delicate chemistry of food. We're not just preventing disease, we're actively preserving the integrity of our biology one meal at a time. Rice is a staple food for over half the world's population, often celebrated for its versatility, affordability, and nutritional value. Yet what many don't realize is that reheating rice can silently transform it into a carrier of toxins and harmful bacteria, not because of the rice itself, but because of how it interacts with time, temperature, and moisture. While it may look perfectly harmless on the plate, reheated rice can set off a chain reaction in your body that triggers inflammation, oxidative stress, and even long-term metabolic harm. The main concern with reheated rice centers around a bacterium called Bacillus cereus. This organism is naturally present in soil and therefore often found in grains like rice, wheat, and legumes. When rice is cooked, most bacteria are destroyed, but Bacillus cereus is a clever survivor. It produces heat-resistant spores that can endure boiling temperatures. Once the cooked rice begins to cool, these spores awaken, germinate, and multiply, especially if the rice is left out at room temperature for too long. The danger doesn't lie just in the bacteria themselves, but in the toxins they produce. These toxins are heat-stable, meaning they're not destroyed even when you reheat the rice. You can make it steaming hot again, but the toxic compounds remain intact, ready to enter your digestive system. The immediate effect can be food poisoning, nausea, cramps, and diarrhea, but the long-term concern is more subtle and insidious: chronic inflammation and cellular stress. When these bacterial toxins enter the gut, they disrupt the intestinal barrier, leading to what scientists call leaky gut syndrome. This condition allows bacterial fragments and inflammatory molecules to seep into the bloodstream, activating immune responses that should never be triggered under normal conditions. Over time, this low-grade chronic inflammation has been linked to metabolic disorders such as insulin resistance, fatty liver disease, and even neurodegenerative decline. The connection between gut health and brain health, often called the gut-brain axis, is critical here. Inflammation in the gut doesn't stay confined, it sends signals to the brain through immune and neural pathways. Researchers have found that chronic exposure to bacterial toxins, even in small doses, can increase levels of systemic inflammation markers like interleukin-6, IL-6, and tumor necrosis factor alpha, TNF-alpha. These molecules can cross the blood-brain barrier, promoting oxidative damage in neurons, accelerating cognitive decline, and increasing the risk of dementia. This means that something as ordinary as reheated rice, when handled improperly, can influence the aging of your brain and body at the cellular level. Every exposure to oxidative stress compounds over time, damaging mitochondria, shortening telomeres, and impairing cellular repair mechanisms. This is the biochemical foundation of accelerated aging. Beyond bacterial toxins, there's another concern: starch retrogradation. When rice cools, its starch molecules reorganize into a form called resistant starch. In moderate amounts, resistant starch can actually be beneficial for gut health because it feeds friendly gut bacteria. However, the problem arises when rice is cooled and reheated repeatedly. The constant temperature shifts alter the crystalline structure of starch, making it harder to digest and more prone to producing advanced glycation end products, AGEs, during reheating. AGEs are compounds formed when sugars bind to proteins and fats under heat, a process known as the Maillard reaction. These compounds give reheated rice its slightly sticky, hardened texture, but they also contribute to cellular damage once absorbed. AGEs promote oxidative stress, stiffen blood vessels, and impair insulin signaling, which can accelerate the development of type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. Studies have shown that diets high in AGEs correlate strongly with shortened lifespan and reduced cognitive resilience. So what can be done to make rice safe without sacrificing convenience? The key lies in temperature control and storage. If you cook rice, cool it quickly by spreading it thinly on a tray or placing it in shallow containers to prevent bacterial growth. Refrigerate it within 1 hour of cooking and keep it below 5 degrees Celsius, 41 degrees Fahrenheit. When reheating, ensure that it reaches at least 75 degrees Celsius, 165 degrees Fahrenheit throughout, but do this only once. If you reheat rice multiple times, you compound both bacterial risk and chemical degradation. Alternatively, you can consume leftover rice cold, a practice common in some cultures, where cold rice salads or rice-based wraps are popular. Cold rice, when stored safely, retains its resistant starch benefits without the oxidative damage caused by reheating. In fact, consuming cooled rice can improve insulin sensitivity and stabilize blood sugar levels, offering a longevity-friendly option when handled correctly. From a longevity perspective, this might seem like a small detail, but aging, at its core, is the accumulation of microscopic insults to our cells and systems over decades. Every meal, every molecule, and every metabolic reaction contributes either to the preservation or erosion of that biological integrity. Reheated rice may not harm you immediately, but its hidden toxins, oxidative compounds, and inflammatory effects subtly add up. Over time, that accumulation can translate into faster biological aging, reduced resilience, and increased vulnerability to disease. Longevity is not about living in fear of food. It's about understanding the biology behind everyday choices. By handling something as simple as rice with greater awareness, by respecting the delicate interplay between heat, microbes, and molecular structure, we can reduce our body's exposure to unnecessary stressors. Small actions like storing food correctly or choosing to eat it cold may seem trivial, but they compound over a lifetime. They preserve the health of our cells, protect our mitochondria, and help keep our biology younger for longer. Potatoes have long been a symbol of comfort, warm, filling, and versatile. From mashed and roasted to fries and chips, they're woven into almost every cuisine in the world. Yet, when we reheat potatoes, especially those that have been fried or roasted, we unknowingly expose our bodies to compounds that accelerate cellular aging and heighten our risk of cancer, neurodegeneration, and metabolic decline. The culprit isn't the potato itself, but the chemistry that unfolds when its starches and sugars are repeatedly heated. At the molecular level, potatoes are rich in carbohydrates, primarily starch, along with small amounts of amino acids, like asparagine. When these two components are exposed to high heat, such as baking, frying, or roasting, they undergo a process called the Maillard reaction. This reaction is responsible for the delicious golden brown crust and rich flavor that make potatoes so appealing. However, hidden within that appealing crispness is a compound called acrylamide, a byproduct of this chemical reaction. Acrylamide is a neurotoxic compound, classified by the World Health Organization as a probable human carcinogen. It forms naturally in carbohydrate-rich foods when cooked above 120 degrees Celsius, 248 degrees Fahrenheit, especially during frying, roasting, or baking. The danger is compounded when those same potatoes are reheated, as the existing acrylamide molecules become more concentrated, and additional ones can form as moisture evaporates and surface temperatures rise again. Each reheating cycle intensifies the oxidative stress potential of the food. When acrylamide enters the body, it is metabolized into glycidamide, an even more reactive compound that binds to DNA and proteins, creating mutations that can disrupt normal cell replication. These mutations don't always lead to immediate illness. They accumulate quietly, often over years or decades, as cellular repair mechanisms become less efficient with age. Over time, these microscopic DNA insults form the foundation for carcinogenesis and premature aging. But acrylamide isn't the only problem. Reheated potatoes are also subject to lipid oxidation and glycation, two processes that generate advanced glycation, end products, AGEs. AGEs are molecular crosslinks formed when sugars bond to proteins and fats under high heat. When we consume AGEs, they accumulate in our tissues, particularly in the brain, arteries, skin, and eyes, stiffening cellular structures and impairing normal function. Elevated AG levels are strongly associated with chronic diseases such as atherosclerosis, diabetes, and Alzheimer's. In the brain, AGs contribute to the buildup of beta amyloid plaques, a hallmark of Alzheimer's disease, while in the vascular system, they cause blood vessels to lose elasticity, increasing the risk of hypertension and heart failure. In essence, every time we reheat starchy foods like potatoes, we're generating more compounds that act like molecular rust, corroding our internal machinery from the inside out. Another aspect of reheated potatoes that often goes unnoticed is the loss of resistant starch integrity. When freshly cooked potatoes cool, some of their starch transforms into resistant starch, which resists digestion and supports healthy gut bacteria. This can be beneficial. Resistant starch helps regulate blood sugar levels and feeds beneficial microbes that produce anti-inflammatory compounds such as butyrate. However, when potatoes are reheated, this delicate starch structure breaks down again, converting back into rapidly digestible carbohydrates. The result? A sharp spike in blood glucose and insulin levels, which over time can accelerate insulin resistance and metabolic aging. These repeated glucose surges can also increase mitochondrial stress. The same kind of stress that shortens telomeres, impairs cellular energy production, and accelerates aging at the biological level. It's a perfect example of how small, seemingly harmless dietary habits can ripple outward into long-term health consequences. From a longevity perspective, the goal isn't to eliminate potatoes, but to prepare and consume them intelligently. If you enjoy potatoes, consider boiling or steaming them instead of frying. These lower temperature cooking methods drastically reduce acrylamide formation. Once cooked, allow them to cool and eat them cold or slightly warmed rather than reheated at high temperatures. Cold potatoes, rich in stable resistant starch, act as a prebiotic food, supporting gut health and improving insulin sensitivity without triggering harmful chemical reactions. You can also pair potatoes with foods rich in antioxidants like olive oil, herbs, or leafy greens to help neutralize free radicals that form during cooking. Vitamin C, polyphenols, and flavonoids from these sources can help reduce the oxidative load created by acrylamide and AGs. Simple changes like these shift the balance from damage to repair, supporting mitochondrial function and reducing inflammation. The lesson here extends beyond potatoes. It's a reminder of how modern cooking habits, convenience, speed, and flavor can sometimes conflict with the biology of longevity. The same heat that creates taste and texture also transforms food at a molecular level, producing compounds our ancient biology never evolved to handle efficiently. Over time, these foreign molecules accumulate, hijacking the body's repair pathways and accelerating the biological clock. Longevity science teaches us that aging is not just about time, it's about the damage we accumulate and the repair we promote. Every meal presents a choice to feed oxidation or to fight it. When we treat food with respect, understanding how heat, chemistry, and biology interact, we align our eating habits with the body's natural longevity mechanisms. Reheating potatoes may seem trivial, but at the cellular level, it's another small push toward oxidative decline. By choosing gentler cooking methods and minimizing reheating, we can preserve not just the nutritional integrity of our meals, but the vitality of our cells, protecting the brain, heart, and mitochondria for years to come. Leafy greens like spinach, kale, and lettuce are often called the crown jewels of nutrition. They're packed with vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and plant compounds that support longevity at nearly every biological level. They enhance mitochondrial function, improve circulation, and protect DNA from oxidative stress. Yet even these nutritional powerhouses can turn against us when handled or reheated improperly. The reason lies in their natural nitrate content, compounds that under the wrong conditions can transform into dangerous molecules known as nitrosamines, which are strongly associated with cancer and cellular damage. To understand this transformation, we need to look at the chemistry. Nitrates themselves are not harmful, in fact they're quite beneficial. When consumed through fresh vegetables, nitrates convert into nitric oxide, a molecule that relaxes blood vessels, improves oxygen delivery, and supports brain and heart health. Nitric oxide is one of the body's most powerful longevity molecules. It helps maintain vascular flexibility and supports mitochondrial performance, two pillars of healthy aging. However, nitrates are unstable and highly reactive. When exposed to heat, bacteria, or acidic environments, they can convert into nitrates, and these in turn can react with amines found in proteins to form nitrosamines, compounds classified as potent carcinogens by the International Agency for Research on Cancer (IRC). This transformation becomes especially concerning when cooked spinach or leafy greens are reheated or left at room temperature for long periods. Warmth and time allow bacteria naturally present in food to facilitate nitrate reduction, increasing nitrite levels dramatically. When these nitrite-rich greens are reheated, especially at high temperatures, the chemical environment favors the formation of nitrosamines. The body can tolerate small amounts occasionally, but repeated exposure over years increases cumulative risk. Nitrosamines can damage DNA, disrupt cellular repair mechanisms, and promote mutations that pave the way for cancers of the stomach, esophagus, and colon. Several studies have confirmed this mechanism. Research from the European Food Safety Authority has shown that nitrate-rich vegetables, when improperly stored or reheated, exhibit elevated nitrite concentrations capable of forming nitrosamines during digestion. These compounds are lipid-soluble, meaning they can cross cell membranes easily, even entering the nucleus, where they can directly modify genetic material. Over time, this DNA damage accumulates, accelerating biological aging and undermining cellular stability. The issue isn't limited to cancer risk alone. Nitrosamines also generate reactive oxygen species ROS, free radicals that damage lipids, proteins, and mitochondria. Mitochondrial DNA, unlike nuclear DNA, has limited repair capacity, making it particularly vulnerable. As mitochondrial function declines, energy production falters, leading to fatigue, inflammation, and a faster aging trajectory. It's no coincidence that individuals with high oxidative stress loads show faster biological aging markers, such as shorter telomeres and reduced NAD availability, both central to longevity science. Another concern is how nitrosamines interact with the brain. Recent studies suggest that chronic exposure to these compounds contributes to neuroinflammation and protein misfolding, both implicated in diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Nitrosamines can cross the blood-brain barrier and impair neuronal mitochondria, reducing the brain's ability to detoxify reactive species. Over time, this chronic oxidative assault weakens neural pathways, leading to cognitive decline. This paints a sobering picture. A simple act like reheating leftover spinach can transform one of nature's most protective foods into a biochemical threat. But awareness offers power. Understanding this chemistry allows us to make smarter choices without abandoning the benefits of greens. The safest approach is to consume leafy greens fresh or shortly after cooking. If you prepare them ahead, cool them rapidly after cooking, within 1 hour, and store them in the refrigerator below 5 degrees Celsius, 41 degrees Fahrenheit. It's better to eat them cold, such as in a salad, smoothie, or as part of a cold side dish rather than reheating. If you must reheat them, do so only once and at low temperatures, minimizing exposure to intense heat. You can also reduce nitrosamine formation by pairing greens with antioxidant-rich foods. Vitamin C, vitamin E, and polyphenols from foods like lemon juice, olive oil, garlic, and herbs such as parsley or rosemary can block nitrosamine formation by competing with nitrite in chemical reactions. This is one reason Mediterranean diets, which often combine leafy greens with citrus and olive oil, show lower cancer rates despite high nitrate consumption. The antioxidants act as molecular shields. From a longevity perspective, the goal isn't to fear heat or nitrates, but to respect the delicate biochemistry of food. Our ancestors ate plants fresh, directly from the earth, without the modern tendency to cook and reheat multiple times. Today's habits, driven by convenience, sometimes clash with our biology. Every time we subject plant nutrients to repeated heat and oxidation, we erode their life-supporting potential. In longevity science, we often speak about hormesis, the idea that small stresses can strengthen the body. But there's a fine line between beneficial stress and chronic damage. Nitric oxide from fresh greens is a beneficial stressor that signals the body to repair and rejuvenate. Nitrosamines, however, are a destructive force that overwhelm those same pathways. The difference often comes down to how we handle our food. By eating greens in their natural, minimally processed form, we maximize their protective potential. They deliver antioxidants, polyphenols, and nitrates in their healthiest state, all crucial for maintaining cellular youth. Reheating them, on the other hand, shifts that chemistry toward oxidation and toxicity. Longevity isn't about strict rules, it's about consistency in small, mindful choices. Every meal is an opportunity to either promote cellular repair or add to the burden of damage. When we treat something as simple as spinach with awareness, cooling it properly, avoiding reheating, combining it with protective foods, we turn a daily meal into an act of preservation for our DNA, our mitochondria, and ultimately our lifespan. Eggs are one of nature's most perfectly designed foods, rich in high-quality protein, essential fats, and vital micronutrients like choline, lutein, and vitamin D. They support muscle maintenance, brain health, and hormonal balance, making them a cornerstone of many longevity-focused diets. But when we reheat eggs, this nutritional perfection can quickly unravel. What begins as a meal that supports cellular vitality can transform into a source of oxidative stress and toxic byproducts that quietly accelerate aging, inflammation, and disease. At the molecular level, eggs are delicate. Their unique structure, a combination of lipids, proteins, and phospholipids, is highly sensitive to temperature. When you cook an egg, heat unfolds its proteins, a process called denaturation, which makes them digestible and safe to eat. However, reheating cooked eggs causes a second, more destructive wave of denaturation. The tightly folded proteins become misaligned and cross-linked, forming complexes that the body struggles to break down. These altered proteins lose their bioavailability, meaning they no longer contribute effectively to muscle repair, enzyme function, or mitochondrial health, and can even trigger immune responses that promote inflammation. The more critical issue, however, lies in cholesterol oxidation. Eggs, particularly the yolk, contain a high concentration of cholesterol, not inherently harmful, but vulnerable to oxidative damage when exposed to heat and air. During cooking, especially at high temperatures like frying or scrambling, some cholesterol molecules oxidize into compounds called oxysterols. These oxysterols are biologically active and can disrupt cellular signaling, damage endothelial cells lining blood vessels, and impair lipid metabolism. When eggs are reheated, the oxidation process accelerates exponentially. More oxysterols are formed, and existing ones degrade into even more reactive species that contribute to the development of atherosclerosis, the slow hardening and narrowing of arteries that underpins cardiovascular disease. Research published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry found that repeatedly heated egg yolks showed a sharp increase in 7-ketocholesterol, one of the most toxic oxysterols known. This compound is capable of generating reactive oxygen species, ROS, inside cells, damaging DNA and mitochondria, and triggering the inflammatory pathways that drive aging. Elevated levels of 7-ketocholesterol have been detected in atherosclerotic plaques, Alzheimer's affected brain tissue, and degenerating retinal cells. In other words, oxidized cholesterol doesn't just affect your arteries, it can also harm your brain and eyes. Oxidized lipids, like these, can impair autophagy, the body's built-in repair process that clears out damaged proteins and cellular debris. When autophagy is disrupted, defective mitochondria accumulate, energy production falters, and oxidative stress spirals out of control. This cellular dysfunction forms the foundation of aging and chronic disease. From a longevity perspective, preserving mitochondrial function and preventing oxidative overload are non-negotiable, and what we choose to reheat or not reheat plays a surprisingly important role in this equation. There's also the matter of flavor and texture, the signs our senses use to warn us that food chemistry has changed. Reheated eggs often develop a rubbery, sulfurous quality. That unpleasant smell comes from hydrogen sulfide, a byproduct of protein breakdown. Though present in small amounts, it signals that amino acids and sulfur-containing compounds have been degraded. These degraded molecules can further participate in oxidative reactions once ingested, adding to the body's inflammatory burden. From a metabolic standpoint, consuming oxidized cholesterol and denatured proteins also interferes with lipid transport and clearance. Oxidized cholesterol particles are poorly recognized by the liver, so they tend to linger in circulation longer, where they can become trapped in arterial walls. Over time, this leads to plaque buildup and endothelial dysfunction, a process that not only contributes to heart disease, but also impairs nutrient delivery and waste removal in every tissue of the body. The result is a subtle but persistent decline in cellular performance, a hallmark of accelerated aging. Fortunately, these effects are entirely preventable. Eggs are safest and most nutritious when eaten fresh and cooked gently. Boiling or poaching at lower temperatures preserves protein structure and minimizes cholesterol oxidation. If you cook eggs, it's best to consume them immediately rather than reheating them later. When preparing meals in advance, consider cooking other protein sources for reheating, such as legumes or tofu, which are more heat-stable and less prone to oxidative degradation. If you must store cooked eggs, refrigerate them promptly in airtight containers to reduce oxygen exposure, which slows oxidation. Instead of reheating, use cold cooked eggs in salads, sandwiches, or high-protein snacks. The nutrients remain intact, and you avoid the oxidative cascade that reheating triggers. You can also protect your body from occasional exposure to oxidized fats by pairing eggs with antioxidant-rich foods. Compounds in vegetables, herbs, and spices, like vitamin C, quercetin, and polyphenols, help neutralize free radicals before they cause damage. A simple pairing of eggs with spinach, avocado, or a drizzle of olive oil not only elevates flavor, but also mitigates oxidative stress. The broader lesson extends beyond eggs. It's about respecting the fragile chemistry of food. Every time we reheat or overcook something rich in fat and protein, we alter its molecular structure, often in ways that conflict with our biology's evolutionary design. Longevity isn't just about what we eat, but how we prepare and handle our food. Small, consistent acts of care, avoiding reheating eggs, cooking gently, pairing meals with antioxidants, may seem trivial, but they compound over time into a significant advantage for cellular health. Our biology thrives on balance between oxidation and repair, between damage and renewal. When we choose to preserve the integrity of the foods we eat, we preserve the integrity of the systems that sustain us. Something as simple as not reheating eggs becomes, in essence, a choice to slow the clock of biological aging, to honor the extraordinary machinery of life that depends on every molecule we feed it.